The night before the college entrance exam, Yu Xiaoqing, the class beauty, asked everyone to hand over their admission tickets to her so she could keep them all together. My mom said that putting the admission ticket inside the red envelope along with the money brings good luck. But keeping them separate is considered bad luck. To my surprise, all the students actually turned in their assignments. In my previous life, I advised them to keep their exam admission tickets safe themselves. But they accused me of looking down on poor people just because my family was wealthy. Just to be on the safe side, I stayed up all night and, at my own expense, submitted the serial numbers of each admission ticket to the Education Bureau for their records. Early the next morning, everyone's admission tickets had accidentally gotten wet and become blurred, except for Yu Xiaoqing's, which was perfectly intact. I rushed over to the Board of Education in the middle of the night to get a certificate, which allowed everyone to make it to the final exam. On the day the test scores were released, Yu Xiaoqing had done poorly on the exam, attempted to jump off the school building but survived. My entire class pointed fingers at me and yelled, "Chu Xiao Xiao. If you hadn't stuck your nose into other people's business, Xiaoqing wouldn't have done something so reckless. How could you be so cruel?" 10 years later, having achieved success and fame, they tracked me down, pinned me down in the very exam room from back then, and strangled me to death. In her second life, when Yu Xiaoqing once again cried out, begging for her admission ticket, I watched them coldly as they handed them over one by one, then turned and went back to my classroom. "Chu Xiao Xiao, you vicious bitch. Go to hell." Lu Yuqing had his hands clamped tightly around my neck, his eyes so bloodshot they looked as if they were about to bleed. All around him were the faces of his classmates, expressionless and even tinged with a hint of secret glee. If you hadn't stuck your nose into other people's business back then, how could Xiaoqing have been driven to jump off the building? It's your fault we ended up at a community college. What gives you the right to look down on us with your degree from a prestigious university? A feeling of suffocation washed over me like a tide, and my windpipe wheezed like a broken bellows. I struggled desperately to look at the group of classmates I used to spend every waking moment with. It's been 10 years, and they've accomplished nothing, yet they blame me for all their failures. Simply because I didn't hand the admission ticket to Yu Xiaoqing back then. Simply because I went to the Education Bureau in the middle of the night to get a certificate, which allowed them to see Yu Xiaoqing's true colors, how she had destroyed the admission ticket. The funny thing is, they'd rather believe Yu Xiaoqing's crocodile tears than admit their own stupidity. Lu Yuqing's grip grew tighter and tighter, and my vision was gradually swallowed up by darkness. The cold concrete floor scraped against my cheek, and my neck bones made a bone-chilling crack. Go downstairs and apologize to Xiaoqing. You owe her that. That was the last thing I heard in my previous life. When I opened my eyes again, I was surrounded by a deafening din. I gasped for air. It felt as if the excruciating pain from the violent compression still lingered in my lungs. I instinctively reached up to touch my neck. There was no bruise there, just warm skin. "Xiao Xiao, what are you spacing out for? Hurry up and get your admission ticket out." A high-pitched, whiny voice rang out in my ear, with a sickeningly cloying sweetness to it. I looked up in bewilderment and met a pair of big, innocent, teary eyes. It's Yu Xiaoqing. She was wearing a school uniform that had been washed until it was faded. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she was clutching a thick stack of exam admission tickets. The scene around me was incredibly familiar. On the blackboard, a countdown written in red chalk announced that there was 1 day left until the college entrance exam. I've been reborn. Let's go back to the night before the college entrance exam, that pivotal moment that changed everyone's fate. My mom says putting them together in a red envelope brings OD luck. And if we separate them, Xiaoqing will get scared. Yu Xiaoqing sniffed, her voice tinged with a pitiful whimper. She pulled a flimsy red paper envelope out of her pocket and carefully slipped the admission ticket she had received inside. Everyone, hand over your admission tickets to mites for good luck. We're all sure to get into great universities. Deeply moved by her fragile and helpless appearance, the students all reached into their pockets and pulled out their admission tickets, which they treasured like precious gems. "Xiaoqing, don't be afraid. We're here for you. Here's your admission ticket." Exactly. Xiaoqing comes from a family with limited means, so she must be under a lot of pressure. It's only right that we share some of our good fortune with her. I watched the scene coldly, my stomach churning with nausea. In my past life. It was also at this very moment that I stepped forward to plead with them not to do it. I told them that their admission tickets are the lifeblood of the college entrance exam and must never be entrusted to anyone else for safekeeping. The result was criticism from the entire class and a decade of isolation. They accused me of looking down on poor people because my family is wealthy, and called me cold-hearted and heartless, with no compassion. For the rest of my life, I'll never do something so stupid and thankless again. I sat firmly in my seat, not moving a muscle, watching coldly as they one by one handed over their futures. Seeing that I hadn't made a move, Lu Yuqing frowned, looking extremely displeased. He strode over to my desk and tapped the surface firmly with his knuckles. Chu Chiao Chiao. What are you waiting for? You're the only one left in the whole class. I looked up at my childhood friend, whom I had once treated with genuine affection. Right now, his face is a mix of a protective instinct toward Yu Xiaoqing and extreme impatience with me. I'm not handing it over. I'll keep my own things myself. My voice was calm, yet it stood out strikingly in the bustling classroom. Yu Xiaoqing's body suddenly stiffened, and tears instantly streamed down her face like beads falling from a broken string. Does Xiao Xiao think I'm clumsy and worry that I'll lose your exam admission ticket? I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have made such an unreasonable request. As she cried, she pretended to give the red paper package in her hand back to the other person. Lu Yuqing immediately shielded her behind him with a look of concern, then turned and glared at me fiercely. Chu Chiao Chiao, are you out of your mind? Xiaoqing is just looking out for everyone's best interests. It's one thing that you usually bully her because your family is rich, but now you won't even do her the small favor. You just can't stand seeing others do well. You have to go out of your way to disrupt the class's unity. Looking at his indignant expression, I couldn't help but snort derisively. Is class unity really demonstrated by turning in your admission tickets? Since you're so eager to show solidarity, why don't you just take the exam for me tomorrow? And by the way, drop the moral blackmail. I am not falling for that. Lu Yuqing turned ashen-faced after I snapped at him. He pointed at my nose but couldn't get a word out for a long time. You're completely unreasonably, no wonder you don't have any friends. The students around me began to whisper among themselves, and the looks they gave me were filled with undisguised contempt. Chu Chiao Chiao is so selfish, she has absolutely no sense of collective honor. Xiaoqing was just trying to be helpful. Is there really any need for her to be so sarcastic? Rich girls are just so spoiled, they really think the world revolves around them. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to those silly voices, so I leisurely packed the study materials on the table into my backpack. Say whatever you want, but no one is going to touch my admission ticket. After saying that, I stood up and walked straight toward the back door of the classroom. Yu Xiaoqing called out from behind in a voice so weak it sounded as if she might faint at any moment. Chiao Chiao. Don't be upset. If you really don't want to, I won't force you. Everyone else is together, but you're all alone. I'm worried you'll get nervous for your exam tomorrow. I stopped in my tracks and turned to give her a cold glance. Mind your own business. I hope you'll still be able to smile tomorrow. Stop right there and explain yourself. Lu Yuqing strode out after me and bed my wrist with astonishing force. The dim light in the hallway made his contorted face look even more menacing. Chu Chiao Chiao. What's gotten into you today? Are you trying to make Xiaoqing look bad? I shook his hand off forcefully. A bright red mark had already appeared on my wrist. I'm just stating a fact. Is there anything wrong with keeping my admission ticket safe? Does it really have to be normal to follow your example and entrust our future to someone who can't even take care of themselves? Lu Yuqing's eyes were filled with disappointment and disgust, as if he were looking at a hopeless piece of trash. Xiaoqing is innocent and kind-hearted. She wants to share her good fortune with everyone. How could someone like you, whose mind is full of schemes, possibly understand that? I'm warning you, if you dare to upset Xiaoqing tomorrow over the exam admission ticket, I won't let you off the hook. Looking at him, completely brainwashed as he was, I couldn't help but feel that my past self had been utterly blind. I can't believe I've staked my whole life on a fool like that. Well, then, you'd better hope her good luck actually works. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more time arguing with him, so I turned and hurried down the stairs, leaving his curses behind me. When I got home, the atmosphere in the living room was unusually oppressive. My dad was sitting on the couch smoking, his brow furrowed. My mom, meanwhile, looked at me with a worried expression, as if she wanted to say something but held back. And sitting right across from them was Liu Yuqing, who was supposed to be at school comforting Yu Shaoqing. He actually got back to my place before I did. Qiao Qiao. You're back. My mom stood up, walked quickly over to me, and took my hand. Yuqing said you bullied that girl named Shaoqing at school today and almost hit her. Is that true? I suddenly turned to look at Liu Yuqing. He was holding a cup of tea, a hint of smug defiance in his eyes. I didn't bully her. I just refused to let her keep my exam admission ticket. I took a deep breath, tried my best to suppress my anger, and explained the situation to my parents. An admission ticket is such an important document, how could you just hand it over to someone else? My dad stubbed out his cigarette, sighed, and spoke with a hint of reproach in his voice. Qiao Qiao. Yuqing already told us that the girl comes from a poor family and has a strong sense of self-respect. She just wanted to use the opportunity of collecting the admission tickets to get to know everyone better and relieve some of the pre-exam stress. As class president, and coming from a well-off family, couldn't you be a little more understanding toward your classmates? I stared at my dad in disbelief, and a deep sense of helplessness welled up inside me. It was the same in my past life. Liu Yuqing always managed to easily sway the people around me with his seemingly righteous rhetoric. Dad, this isn't about tolerance at all, it's a matter of principle. If there's a problem with the admission tickets tomorrow, who will take responsibility? Yu Shaoqing. Liu Yuqing set down his teacup, let out a cold laugh, and spoke with a tone full of sarcasm. Chu Qiao Qiao. Don't assume everyone is as cynical as you are. Shaoqing has already locked her admission ticket in the drawer. What could possibly go wrong? You're just jealous that Shaoqing is more popular than you in class, so you're picking on her on purpose. I was so angry I was shaking all over, and I pointed toward the gate and shouted furiously, Liu Yuqing, get out of here. This is my house, it's not your place to run wild. When my mom saw what was happening, she quickly rushed over, grabbed me, and patted me on the back repeatedly to calm me down. Qiao Qiao. How can you talk to Yuqing like that? He's only looking out for Yoha's worried you'll go down the wrong path. We're all classmates, and the college entrance exam is tomorrow. Let's not let this little thing ruin our friendship. As I looked at my mom's face, which was etched with a peacemaker's expression, my heart sank. This is my family. When others slandered me, they chose to side with the perpetrators. You can think whatever you want, but there's no way I'm handing my admission ticket over to anyone. I pushed my mom's hand away, turned, and ran upstairs, slamming the door shut. Liu Yuqing's sarcastic voice came from outside the door. Uncle and aunt, just look at her temper. She's definitely going to suffer a lot when she goes out into the real world. Shaoqing is so sensible, yet she insists on making things difficult at every turn. It's truly incomprehensible. With my back against the door, I listened to those harsh comments, digging my fingernails deep into the palms of my hands. I walked over to my desk, pulled open the drawer, and took out that thin exam admission ticket. In the photo above, I'm smiling with confidence and flair. In her past life, although this admission ticket was never given to Yu Shaoqing, Liu Yuqing forcibly tore it up the next morning, to force me to give in and to put me on the same starting line as Yu Xiaoqing didn't hesitate to ruin my future. In this lifetime, I will never let that tragedy happen again. I carefully tucked my admission ticket into a thick dictionary, then stuffed it into the very bottom of my backpack. After I finished all that, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling with my eyes wide open until dawn. Tomorrow, the real fun is just beginning. From outside the door came the sound of Liu Yuqing shouting downstairs just before he left. Chu Qiao Qiao. You'd better pray that everything goes smoothly tomorrow, or I'll be the first to make you pay. The early morning sunlight streaming through the cracks in the curtains stung my eyes. I quickly rolled out of bed, washed up, and went downstairs with my backpack on. My parents were already sitting in the dining room eating breakfast. And when they saw me come downstairs, they both looked a little uncomfortable. Ciao ciao. You didn't sleep well last night, did you? Come on over and have something to eat. After you finish, your dad will drive you to the test center. My mom stood up and tried to break the stifling awkwardness with a gentle tone. I paid no attention to the sumptuous breakfast on the table and just coldly muttered a single sentence. No. Thanks. I'll just take a cab. With that, I walked out the door without looking back, leaving their stunned gazes behind me. When I arrived outside the test center, there was still an hour left before the first exam. The Chinese language test was set to begin. A large crowd of test takers and parents had already gathered at the school gate, and the atmosphere was both tense and lively. I spotted Yu Xiaoqing right away, surrounded by our classmates. She was crouched on the ground, her hands covering her face, her shoulders shaking violently as she let out a heart-wrenching cry. As for the students around them, they were all pale as ghosts, looking as if they had just lost a close relative. Lu Yuqing stood beside Yu Xiaoqing, his eyes bloodshot, looking like a raging beast. I slowed my pace and watched this farce which I had long anticipated with a cold, detached gaze. How could this happen? My admission tickets are all ruined. The handwriting is so blurry I can't make it out. And the photo is out of focus. The proctor definitely won't let me in. It's over. It's all over. I spent a whole year repeating the year. Am I really going to have to do it all over again? The students held soggy balls of paper in their hands and wailed in despair. That was the very admission ticket they had handed over themselves last night. Now, they've all been soaked beyond recognition and have turned into a pile of worthless paper. Yu Xiaoqing looked up, her face streaked with tears, her voice trembling so much it was barely audible. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know why this happened either. Last night, I accidentally knocked over a glass of water, and it spilled right into the drawer. I really didn't mean to do it. Please forgive me, everyone. She wept as if her eyes were brimming with tears, as if she were the one who had suffered the most. Lu Yuqing gently pulled her into his arms, patting her back repeatedly. Xiaoqing, don't cry. It's not your fault. It was just an accident. An accident. This is my college entrance exam admission ticket. Do you think a simple accident will solve this? The squad leader finally lost his temper. He rushed forward and grabbed Lu Yuqing by the collar. We entrusted our future to Harris. This how she's looking after it. Lu Yuqing forcefully pushed the class monitor aside and stood in front of Yu Xiaoqing like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Why are you taking it out on Xiaoqing? She's already feeling guilty enough. Just then, Lu Yuqing's gaze swept through the crowd and locked onto me. A malicious glint suddenly flashed in his eyes, as if he had found the perfect outlet for his anger. It's Chu Qiaoqiao. It must have been Chu Qiaoqiao who did it. He pointed at me, speaking loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. She's been holding a grudge against Xiaoqing ever since last night for taking her admission ticket. So she must have snuck into the classroom in the middle of the night and deliberately poured water on it. As soon as I said that, the eyes of the entire class instantly turned to me. Those gazes were filled with suspicion, anger, and deep hatred. Chu Qiaoqiao. It's one thing to pick on Xiaoqing all the time, but I can't believe you'd actually do something like this. You're so cruel just to get back at Xiaoqing. You're dragging our whole class down with you. Compensate us for our admission tickets. Compensate us for our futures. A few students who had lost control of their emotions even rushed toward me, trying to attack me. I let out a cold laugh, took a step back, and dodged their outstretched hands. Are you guys out of your minds? I went straight home after school last night. How could I have snuck into the classroom? Besides, you were the ones who insisted on giving her the admission ticket. Now that something's gone wrong, you want to make me take the blame. As I looked at Yu Xiaoqing's face hidden behind Lu Yuqing's back, smirking smugly, a chill ran even deeper through my heart. In her past life, she had used the exact same excuse to shirk all responsibility, and those idiots actually believed her nonsense. If it weren't for you, why is yours the only admission ticket that's in good condition? Lu Yuqing pressed his advantage, trying to pin me to the pillory of shame with this baseless logic. Because I'm not as stupid as you guys. I pulled the undamaged admission ticket out of my backpack and waved it in front of them. When it comes to my things, I only trust myself. When she saw the admission ticket in my hand, a fleeting glimpse of jealousy and madness flashed across Yu Xiaoqing's eyes. She suddenly broke free from Lu Yuqing's embrace and fell to her knees in front of me with a thud. Qiao Qiao. I know you hate me. You can hit me or yell at me whatever you want, but please, save everyone. Since you have your admission ticket in good condition, that means you must be able to get a new one, right? Yu Xiaoqing knelt on the ground, clinging tightly to my calf, crying her heart out. Please. Please go to the Department of Education and help us get a certificate. If you're willing to help, I'll even kowtow to you. Her words instantly thrust me onto the moral high ground, where I was left to simmer. If I refuse, I'll be a cold-blooded, heartless sinner who stands by and watches someone die. If I agree, I'll have to rush over to the Board of Education, which means I'll miss my first exam. In my previous life, it was precisely her moral blackmail that forced me to rush to the Education Bureau in the middle of the night. Which is how I barely managed to get them to take the final exam. As for me, however, because I failed the earlier courses, my total score wasn't high enough, and I missed out on getting into my dream university. And now, in this lifetime, she actually wants to use the same trick to destroy me. I yanked my leg back forcefully and looked down at her hypocritical face. Yu Xiaoqing, do you think the whole world is your mother and that everyone has to spoil you? You're the one who ruined the admission ticket. Why should I have to clean up your mess? Instead of wasting time groveling, you'd be better off going to the Board of Education yourself to see if they can issue a certificate. My words were like a resounding slap that hit the entire class right across the face. They finally realized that expecting me to skip the exam to save them was nothing short of a pipe dream. Chu Qiao Qiao. Are you even human? We were classmates. Are you really just going to stand by and watch us die? Lu Yuqing charged at me, his eyes blazing with fury, as if he were about to tear me to pieces at any moment. If you don't go get that certificate today, don't even think about entering the exam room. He spread his arms wide, standing in front of me like a wall, trying to use force to prevent me from taking the exam. Seeing this, several boys nearby gathered around, forming a circle. That's right. We can't let her just walk in like that. Why should she be able to take the exam when we can't? If we're all going to die, we'll all die together. No one's going to have it easy. At that moment, the evil in human nature was laid bare. When they find themselves in a desperate situation, they don't think about how to save themselves, but rather how to drag others down with them. I stared coldly at this group of crazed clowns as my hand slowly slipped into the side pocket of my backpack. That's where I keep my high-intensity flashlight and pepper spray for self-defense. Just as the situation was about to spiral out of control, the doors to the exam hall slowly opened. Several heavily armed security guards and proctors came out and began maintaining order. What are you doing? This is a secure exam area. Loud noise and disorderly conduct are prohibited. The security captain in charge barked an order, holding a baton to intimidate the crowd. I took the opportunity to squeeze through a gap in the crowd and hurried to the security checkpoint. Teacher, here is my admission ticket and ID card. I handed my ID to the proctor, my voice steady and without a trace of panic. After carefully checking, the teacher nodded and motioned for me to go in. I turned my head and looked at the group of people who had been stopped by security outside. Lu Yuqing was struggling desperately, trying to break through the security cordon. Yu Xiaoqing, meanwhile, slumped to the ground, her eyes vacant, as if she had lost her soul. Chu Qiao Qiao, if you dare step through that door today, I guarantee you'll come to a terrible end. Lu Yuqing's desperate roar echoed through the exam hall. I ignored him, walked straight into the exam room, and found my seat. The first exam, in Chinese, went very smoothly. I answered the questions with complete focus, blocking out all the distractions from the outside world. 2.5 hours later, the bell rang, signaling the end of the exam. I packed up my school supplies, walked out of the exam room, and took a deep breath of the fresh air outside. However, this tranquility did not last long. As soon as I stepped out of the school gates, I was blocked by a group of people with grim expressions. They're classmates from my class. They actually didn't leave, but waited here for me for 2.5 hours. You did pretty well on the test. Didn't you, Miss Chu? The squad leader glared at me, his eyes bloodshot. We missed the Chinese exam because of you. Are you happy now? I frowned, thinking that these people's logic was simply incomprehensible. You missed the exam because you Xiaoqing ruined your admission tickets. What does that have to do with me? If it weren't for your cold-heartedness and refusal to help us get the certificate, we wouldn't have missed it. Another girl screamed shrilly, her face streaked with tears. Just then, Yu Xiaoqing stepped out from behind the crowd. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she was actually holding a perfectly intact admission ticket. Qiao. I just went to beg the proctors, and they took pity on me and let me in. She deliberately waved her admission ticket in front of me, her tone carrying a hint of undisguised pride. But I was so worried about everyone that I couldn't concentrate on the test. At Ali didn't even finish my essay. If you'd been willing to help us out this morning, we'd all be happily discussing the answers right now. Yu Xiaoqing's words were like a bucket of scalding oil, instantly pouring over the flames of her classmates' already raging anger. Didn't you hear? Even someone as frail as Lian Xiaoqing was allowed to take the exam. Why won't you help us? You're just deliberately turning a blind eye. A selfish person like you doesn't deserve to get into college. Lu Yuqing suddenly pushed his way through the crowd, rushed up to me, and grabbed me by the collar. He reeked of sweat and despair, and his eyes were fixed intently on me. Qiao. Go to the Board of Education right now to get a certificate. You can still make it to this afternoon's math test. If you don't go, I'll tear up your admission ticket today, even if it costs me my life. As he roared, he reached out to snatch the clear folder from my hand. I was prepared for this, so I took a big step back and at the same time forcefully knocked his hand away. A sharp slap rang out, and the back of Lu Yuqing's hand instantly turned red and swollen. How dare you hit me? He looked at me in disbelief, as if he'd been terribly wronged. I'm talking to you, you stupid idiot who can't understand a word I'm saying. I stared at him coldly, my gaze devoid of any warmth. I'll say this one last time. Yu Xiaoqing is the one who ruined the admission ticket. If you want to blame anyone, blame her. You're the ones who were foolish enough to put your futures in someone else's hands. Now that you're paying the price, you're looking for a scapegoat. I'm telling you, no way. My words completely enraged this group of people who had lost their minds. They pounced on me like a pack of hungry wolves, trying to force me to comply through violence. Security. Someone is stealing exam admission tickets here. Without hesitation, I pressed the button on the high-decibel alarm I carried with me. A piercing alarm suddenly blared throughout the school entrance, drawing the attention of nearby parents and security guards. Several security guards quickly rushed over and forcibly pulled the group of students, who had lost their composure, apart. What are you doing? Robbing me in broad daylight. If you keep this up, I'm calling the police. The security chief issued a stern warning. Shielding me behind him, Lu Yuqing was being held down firmly by 2 security guards. But he was still struggling reluctantly. Let me go. She ruined our future. We're going to make her pay with her blood. I stood behind the security guards, watching their bedraggled appearance, and a mocking, cold smile curled at the corners of my mouth. Blood for blood. You'd better think about how you're going to explain this to your parents first. After saying that, I paid no further attention to their impotent rage and turned to walk toward the restaurant across the street. I continued to perform consistently on the math test this afternoon. Outside the exam hall, however, the group of students had already disappeared. I heard that they were forcibly taken back by school officials and their parents, and that endless blame and regret await them. Over the next 2 days, I completed all my exam subjects one by one. Every time I walked out of the exam room, I could feel the boulder that had been weighing on my heart, a burden from a past life, gradually crumbling away. After the last English exam was over, I let out a long sigh of relief. It's finally over. When I got home, my parents' attitude did a complete 180. They learned the truth about the destruction of the admission tickets from the school administrators, and finally saw Yu Shaoqing and Liu Yuqing for who they really were. Qiao Qiao. We're sorry. Mom and Dad were wrong to blame you. My mom, with tears welling up in her eyes, held my hand and kept apologizing. We really didn't expect that girl named Shaoqing to be so malicious. My dad looked guilty, too, and sighed repeatedly. That kid Yuqing is completely ruined. From now on, our family will act as if we never knew him. I calmly withdrew my hand, feeling little in response to their apology. Affection that comes too late is worth less than grass. Trust that comes too late is equally worthless. It's all in the past now. I'm tired and just want to rest for a while. I turned and walked upstairs, leaving their regretful glances behind the door. The day the grades were released, the weather was unusually muggy. As I sat in front of my computer, looking at that dazzling string of scores on the screen, a genuine smile on me first since my rebirth finally appeared on my lips. Top scoring student in science in the province. This achievement is enough to get me into one of the nation's top universities. Meanwhile, the class chat group was completely silent. No one is posting their test scores. And no one is discussing college applications, because they have absolutely no achievements. Just as I was about to shut down my computer, a message suddenly popped up in the group chat. It was sent by Yu Shaoqing. I'm sorry, everyone. I did poorly on the test. I only got 210 points. I'm too ashamed to face you all. I've decided to take my own life at the school gate to atone for my sins. If I die, I hope you'll forgive me. And I hope Qiao Qiao can let go of her prejudices against me. As soon as the news broke, the previously silent group chat instantly erupted into a frenzy. Shaoqing, don't do anything stupid. Where are you? We're on our way. Chu Qiao Qiao. Did you see that? You've driven Shaoqing to the brink. Are you satisfied now? As I watched Liu Yuqing frantically tagging me in the group chat, my eyes instantly turned cold. Want to die. If she, Yu Shaoqing, really had the guts, she wouldn't have pretended to jump off a building in her previous life to use that as a moral blackmail tactic against me. I grabbed the car keys from the table and walked out the door with a cold smile. Since you want to play a game, I'll play along with you. By the time I arrived at the school gate, the area was already packed with people. Yu Shaoqing stood on the roof of the two-story security guard booth next to the school gate, teetering on the brink of collapse. She was wearing her signature faded school uniform. Her hair was a mess, and her face was smeared with tears and snot. Don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I'll jump, she screamed at the crowd below, but her voice betrayed a sense of affected bravado. Liu Yuqing stood at the very front, sweating profusely with anxiety, his hands waving frantically in the air. Shaoqing, calm down. Let's go downstairs and talk this through. It's all Chu Qiao Qiao's fault. She stood by and did nothing to help. She's cold-blooded and heartless. You mustn't punish yourself for someone else's mistakes. With those words, he successfully shifted the hatred of those around him back onto me. The students who were in despair over missing the college entrance exam, and the parents who were furious that their children's futures had been ruined, all turned their furious glares toward me. It's Hershey's, the ungrateful person who had her own admission ticket but refused to help her classmate get a certificate. How dare she show her face here? She should get down on her knees and kowtow to Shaoqing to apologize. Kill that evil woman, let her pay with her life for what she did to our child. A few angry parents even picked up rocks from the ground and threw them at me. I didn't look away. I just stared coldly at Yu Shaoqing, who was standing on the rooftop, secretly gloating. In her past life, she used this very tactic to successfully portray herself as a vulnerable victim of bullying, and I became the villain who drove my classmate to suicidia, a sin that will haunt me for all time. 10 years later, this group of people even strangled me to death in the name of revenge. For the rest of my life, I will never let her get her way again. Jump, Yu Shaoqing. Why aren't you jumping yet? I pushed my way through the crowd, strode to the front, tilted my head back, and spoke in a clear, loud voice. This building is only 2 stories tall. If you jump off, you'll break a leg at most. Do you think it's not tall enough? Do you want me to find you a taller building? My words were like a bomb, causing a huge stir among the crowd. Chu Qiao Qiao. Are you even human? How could you force her to take her own life? Lu Yuqing's eyes bulged with rage, and he lunged forward, trying to grab me by the throat. The bodyguard behind me quickly stepped forward and pinned him firmly to the ground. Let me go, I am going to kill that wicked woman. Lu Yuqing thrashed around on the ground like a mad dog, spewing a steady stream of profanities. Yu Shaoqing stood on the rooftop, and her face instantly turned pale. She clearly hadn't expected me to expose her trick right in front of everyone. Qiao Qiao. I know you hate me, but why do you have to be so heartless? She covered her face and wept even more pitifully, trying to win everyone's sympathy once again. I really can't go on living. I ruined everyone's exam admission tickets. I'm a sinner, but I really didn't mean to. I just wanted to share some good luck with everyone. Seeing her unrepentant expression, I completely lost my patience. You didn't mean to. Yu Shaoqing, do you really think no one knows about the dirty things you've done? I took a mini projector out of my bag, connected it to my phone, and projected the image onto the white wall next to the school gate. Take a good look, everyone. This is the innocent, kind-hearted Yu Shaoqing you've been talking about, the one who didn't mean to do it. The screen lights up, revealing surveillance footage from a classroom the night before the college entrance exam. In the video, after Yu Shaoqing and everyone else had left, she remained alone in the classroom. She didn't put the red paper bag filled with admission tickets into the drawer. Instead, he took out a basin of water he had prepared, tore the admission tickets into pieces one by one, and then soaked them all in the water. As she tore it apart, she let out a cold laugh. Her once innocent face looked particularly twisted and ferocious in the dim light. Why is it that all of you got into college, but I have to go out and work? Since I'm not going to get in, why don't you all stay here with me? We can all go to community college together, won't that be great? The sound from the video reached the ears of everyone present with crystal clarity. The entire venue was deathly silent. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the image on the wall in disbelief. The parents who had been shouting just moments ago that they would beat me to death were now ashen-faced and trembling all over. The students who had viewed Yu Shaoqing as a victim seemed to have been drained of all their strength and collapsed onto the ground. As for Lu Yuqing, it was as if he'd been slapped hard across the face. He stared blankly at Yu Shaoqing in the video, muttering to himself, "No way. This can't be true. Shaoqing isn't that kind of person. This video is fake." I walked up to him and looked down at him from above. Fake. Lu Yuqing, are you still fooling yourself? Open your eyes wide and take a good look at what kind of woman that is, the one who's been playing you like a fool. No. This isn't real. You edited this video, didn't you? Yu Shaoqing let out a scream on the rooftop. Her voice was as shrill as fingernails scraping against glass. Her mask of pitiful vulnerability shattered completely, replaced by extreme panic at having been exposed. Chu Qiao Qiao. You actually faked the surveillance footage just to frame me. You're so malicious. She pointed at me, trying to make one last desperate attempt. I let out a scoff and pointed my phone screen at the parents and classmates below. I obtained this classroom surveillance footage while I was at the Education Bureau late last night to file a report. It bears the Education Bureau's official seal and a timestamp. If you don't believe me, you can call the police right now and have them verify the authenticity of this video. The moment she heard the word alarm, Yu Shaoqing's legs gave way, and she collapsed right onto the edge of the rooftop. She knew that once the police got involved, the charge of intentionally destroying someone else's important documents would be completely proven. Shaoqing, tell me this isn't true. You didn't deliberately destroy our exam admission tickets, did you? The class monitor rushed downstairs, tilted his head back, and spoke with a desperate, tearful voice. His family wasn't well off, so he spent a year retaking the college entrance exam, pinning all his hopes on this one attempt. But he never expected that, in the end, he would be brought down by the girl he considered the most vulnerable and in greatest need of protection. Yu Shaoqing didn't dare look the class monitor in the eye. She just shook her head frantically, her face smeared with tears and snot. And she no longer looked as pitiful as she used to. I didn't. I really didn't. I'm just jealous. I'm just afraid that if you all leave, I'll be the only one left. She tried to make a rambling, incoherent defense, but in doing so, she only served to confirm what was shown in the video. A burst of uncontrollable anger erupted from the crowd. "You vicious bitch. You'll pay for ruining my son's future." One parent lost control and suddenly rushed toward the staircase, intending to run up and pull Yu Shaoqing down. Seeing this, the other parents, with tears in their eyes, followed suit. The situation quickly spiraled out of control. The security guards tried desperately to intervene, but they were no match for the angry parents. Lu Yuqing was still pinned to the ground by his bodyguards. As he looked at the chaotic scene before him, his eyes went completely blank. His pride in his protective instincts and his self-righteous sense of justice turned into a complete farce at that moment. How could this happen? Why did this happen? He muttered to himself, as if the whole world had come crashing down. I walked up to him, crouched down, and spoke in a voice only the two of us could hear. "Lu Yuqing, you've actually known what kind of person Yu Shaoqing is for a long time, haven't you?" He suddenly looked up and stared at me in terror. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. I don't know anything." I snorted derisively and mercilessly tore away his mask of hypocrisy. "Your grades are so bad that you'll never get into a good college. You're afraid that if your classmates all get in, no one will take you seriously anymore. So when Yu Shaoqing suggested collecting the admission tickets, not only did you not stop her, but you actually became her most enthusiastic supporter. Because, deep down, you actually want everyone else to fail the exam along with you. That's the only way your pitiful self-esteem can be satisfied." Lu Yuqing's face instantly turned as pale as a sheet. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single sound. I had struck a nerve, his darkest, most hidden secret. "You're talking nonsense. I didn't do that. I genuinely wanted to help Shaoqing." He was still trying to make excuses, but even he couldn't be convinced by that faint voice. I stood up, ignoring that pathetic guy who thought he was something special, and turned my attention to Yu Shaoqing, who had finally been dragged down from the roof by her parents. She was thrown to the ground like a dead dog, with a large clump of hair torn from her head and her face covered in scratch marks. The parents surrounded her, punching and kicking her as they vented the pent-up anger and despair in their hearts. "Stop hitting me, please. I know I was wrong." Yu Shaoqing clutched her head and rolled around on the ground in agony, letting out a piercing scream. The students stood by, watching the class beauty they had once adored, their eyes showing not a trace of sympathy, only deep loathing and regret. "Yu Shaoqing, you've ruined our whole lives. Even if you died 10,000 times, it wouldn't be enough." The squad leader said this through gritted teeth and spat viciously at her. I watched all this unfold with a cold, detached gaze, feeling not the slightest bit of pity. She owes me this from her past life, and it's the retribution she deserves in this one. Just then, the shrill sound of a police siren could be heard in the distance. Several police cars screeched to a halt at the school gate, and the officers quickly got out and secured the scene. "Stop, everyone. Step back." The police forcibly separated the angry parents and handcuffed Yu Shaoqing, who had already been beaten to the point of near death. "Yu Shaoqing, you are suspected of intentionally destroying another person's important documents. Please come with us." As the cold handcuffs clamped onto her wrists, Yu Shaoqing finally realized the gravity of the situation. She struggled in terror, her gaze frantically scanning the crowd until it finally settled on Lu Yuqing. "Yuqing, please help me. Please explain to the police that I was forced to do it. Yuqing, say something. Didn't you say you'd protect me for the rest of my life?" As if clinging to her last hope, Yu Shaoqing cried out at the top of her lungs to Lu Yuqing. Her face, already bruised and battered, was now completely contorted with sheer terror. All eyes instantly turned to Lu Yuqing. Lu Yuqing shuddered and jerked backward as if he'd been electrocuted. Seeing the cold stare of the police officer and the furious glares from the parents and classmates around him, he completely lost his nerve. "Don't talk nonsense. I have nothing to do with you." He shook his head frantically, trying desperately to distance himself from the matter, his voice rising to a shrill pitch out of panic. "It was your own malicious intent that ruined everyone's admission tickets. You kept me in the dark the whole time. I am a victim too. Yu Shaoqing stared in disbelief, her eyes wide, as if she were seeing the man standing before her for the very first time. Lu Yuqing, you coward, now you're trying to burn your bridges. Suddenly, as if she had lost her mind, she ignored the police officer's attempts to stop her and shouted at Lu Yuqing. Don't believe him. Everyone. He was involved in destroying the admission tickets. 2. He told me that as long as none of us passed the exam, Chu Xiaoqiao would be isolated, and he could take that opportunity to gain control over her. We'd already discussed this among ourselves. He's nothing but a hypocritical pretender. These words hit like a bombshell, once again sending shockwaves through the crowd. The parents' anger instantly shifted, and they fixed their gaze intently on Lu Yuqing. Lu Yuqing turned pale with fear, stumbled backward repeatedly, and finally plopped down onto the ground. You're making baseless accusations, officer. She's crazish, just making up things. He waved his hands frantically, trying to hide his inner panic. I stood on the sidelines, watching this spectacular dog-eat-dog spectacle unfold, a mocking smile playing on the corners of my mouth. If I'm just making baseless accusations, wouldn't the evidence prove it? I calmly took another printed document out of my bag and handed it directly to the police officer in charge. Officer, this is a copy of the chat history between Lu Yuqing and Yu Shaoqing from the month before the college entrance exam. It details the entire process of how they conspired to destroy the entire class's exam admission tickets and how they shifted the blame onto me. The moment Lu Yuqing heard the words chat history, it was as if all the strength had been drained from his body, and he collapsed completely to the ground. He never would have imagined that I knew everything about their secret dealings. This is, of course, thanks to the advantages of my rebirth, as well as the private investigator I hired at great expense. The police officer took the documents, quickly flipped through a few pages, and his face instantly turned ashen. Lu Yuqing, you're suspected of being an accomplice. You'll have to come with us. 2. Two police officers stepped forward and roughly lifted Lu Yuqing off the ground. The cold handcuffs were also fastened around his wrists. No, I don't want to go to jail. My dad will pay to get me out. You can't arrest me. Lu Yuqing was still making a last-ditch effort, trying to use his nouveau riche father to intimidate the other person. However, his words only drew even more intense verbal abuse from the parents, who also threw objects at him. Scum. Good for nothing. You two deserve to rot in prison for the rest of your lives. You've ruined so many children's futures. People like you deserve to go to hell. Amid a deafening chorus of curses, Yu Shaoqing and Lu Yuqing were forcibly escorted into the police car. The police car sped away, leaving behind a scene of chaos and a crowd that took a long time to calm down. The students stood there dumbfounded, staring in the direction where the police car had disappeared, their eyes filled with confusion and regret. The class monitor suddenly turned around and dropped to his knees in front of me with a thud. Qiao, I'm sorry. We were blind. We wrongly accused you. As soon as he spoke, the other students followed suit and knelt down one after another, and the room was filled with the sound of weeping. Qiao, please forgive us. We really know we were wrong. We have nothing left now. We don't even know if we'll have a chance to retake the exam. What are we supposed to do? Looking at these people who had once hurled insults at me outside the exam hall and even tried to snatch my admission ticket, I felt not the slightest stir in my heart. If only I'd known then what I know now. I stared at them coldly, my voice devoid of any sympathy. When you chose to entrust your future to a good-for-nothing who does nothing but cry, when you chose to blindly believe lies and attack me, the outcome was already sealed. Don't expect me to feel sorry for you. You're adults. You have to pay the price for your own stupidity. After saying that, I turned without hesitation, made my way through the crowd, and headed toward the car parked by the roadside. Behind them came their heart-wrenching cries and the desperate sighs of their parents. But that's none of my business anymore. When I got home, my parents had already prepared a lavish feast to celebrate my success. When they saw the report card I brought home showing that I was the top student in the province, they couldn't stop smiling. Our Qiao really makes us proud. Now let's see who dares to gossip behind her back. My dad Piley opened a bottle of red wine he'd been saving for years and poured me a full glass. I raised my glass, gazed at the brilliant sunlight streaming through the window, and whispered softly into the air, "The shadows of my past life have finally dissipated completely at this very moment." The news of Yu Shaoqing and Lu Yuqing's arrest quickly made the front page of the local news. This news caused a huge stir in society, and everyone was shocked by this despicable act. The Education Bureau and the police took this matter very seriously and quickly established a task force to conduct a thorough investigation. Faced with irrefutable evidence from surveillance footage and chat logs, the two had absolutely no way to deny it. In the interrogation room, they shifted blame onto one another and lashed out at each other, laying bare the ugliest side of human nature. Yu Shaoqing insisted that Lu Yuqing had instructed her to do it, claiming she was just an innocent young woman blinded by love. Lu Yuqing, on the other hand, started cursing at Yu Shaoqing, calling her a scheming bitch and claiming that it was all part of her long-planned revenge. However, the law will not give credence to their mutual accusations. Ultimately, the two were indicted in accordance with the law on charges of intentional destruction of public and private property and picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Due to the enormous amount of money involved and the extremely negative social impact of their actions, they were sentenced to prison terms. Lu Yuqing's father had originally planned to pay off officials in an attempt to get his son out of trouble, but with the situation at such a critical juncture, no one dares to take on this hot potato. Not only that, but the Lu family's company has also been severely implicated in this scandal. Partners began withdrawing their investments one after another. Banks began calling in loans ahead of schedule, and the cash flow came to an abrupt halt. In just 1 month, the once mighty Lu family declared bankruptcy. Lu Yuqing's father couldn't cope with the shock and suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage, landing him in the intensive care unit. Meanwhile, Lu Yuqing, who had once acted with arrogance and tyranny outside the exam hall, could only spend his most precious years of youth behind bars. As for Yu Shaoqing, her fate was even more tragic. Her family, which had always favored sons over daughters, immediately announced that they were cutting ties with her after learning she was involved in a legal case. No one cared whether she lived or died in there. She had become a complete orphan, abandoned by the world. I heard that even in the detention center, she tried to curry favor with her cellmates using that same sweet-talking act. The result was even harsher isolation and punishment. Her face, which she had once been so proud of, had become weathered and haggard from day after day of torment. There was no longer a trace of the school beauty she once was, and those classmates who trusted Yu Shaoqing too easily also paid a heavy price. Since they did not take the college entrance exam, they lost their status as current high school graduates. Some families with slightly better financial means have chosen to pay a high price to have their children repeat a grade at a private school. But for many more people, they are forced to enter the workforce early, screwing bolts in factories or serving dishes in restaurants. The class monitor went to work at an electronics factory in the south, performing repetitive, mechanical tasks on the assembly line every day for a meager salary. That girl who once pointed her finger at me and called me cold-hearted is now an apprentice at a hair salon, washing people's hair every day until the skin on her hands peels off. The course of their lives was completely altered on that night when they handed in their admission tickets. Every now and then, they'll vent a little in the class group chat late at night, reminiscing about the good old days at school, but no one ever replied. That once lively class chat group had turned into a deathly silent tomb. I watched it all with a cold, detached gaze, feeling nothing at all. I had long since completely cut them out of my life. At the end of August, I received an acceptance letter from the nation's top university. The gold foil school badge sparkled brilliantly in the sunlight was the best reward for my second chance at life. My parents threw a grand celebration for me to mark my acceptance into college, inviting all our relatives and friends. At the banquet, everyone was praising my intelligence and talent, and envying my parents for having such a wonderful daughter. Wearing a custom-made gown and holding a glass of juice, I moved gracefully through the crowd, accepting everyone's well wishes. Ciao ciao. Take good care of yourself once you get to college. If you need anything, let us know anytime. My mom, with tears welling up in her eyes, straightened my collar, her gaze filled with pride and reluctance. Don't worry, Mom. I'll be fine. I smiled and gave her a hug, savoring the warmth of this long-missed family bond. In my past life, Because of my entanglement with Liu Yuqing, my parents were utterly disappointed in me, and in the end, they even died of grief. In this life, I've not only secured my own future, but I've also protected my family. In early September, I boarded a flight to the capital alone. Pulling my suitcase behind me, I watched the city grow smaller and smaller outside the porthole and spoke softly to my reflection in the glass. Goodbye to all those disgusting people and things. Me new life is beginning. Life at university was fulfilling and busy. I devoted all my energy to my studies and research. Thanks to my solid foundation and the advantage of being reborn as a prophet, I quickly made a name for myself in my field. During my junior year, I led my team to win a national-level innovation project, earning a generous cash prize and a spot in the graduate school admission program. And just as I was standing on the podium, basking in the flowers and applause, an unexpected person came into view. It's Liu Yuqing. Because of his good behavior in prison, he received a sentence reduction and was released early. However, he no longer has the vigor and enthusiasm he once had. He was wearing a cheap gray jacket. His hair was a mess. He was so thin he was barely recognizable, and his eyes were filled with weariness and the weight of life's hardships. He stood in the corner of the auditorium, staring intently at me, a complex look in his eyes. Right after the awards ceremony ended, I had just stepped out of the auditorium when he blocked my path. Ciao ciao. It's been a long time. His voice was hoarse, with a hint of ingratiation. As he tried to get closer to me, the classmate next to me immediately stepped in front of me protectively and frowned at this uninvited guest. Who are you? What do you want? I gently patted my classmates on the shoulder to let them know everything was fine, then gave Liu Yuqing a cold stare. Is there something you need? Liu Yuqing rubbed his hands together, looking nervous. Ciao ciao. I saw the news and know you're doing well now. I'm happy for you. I thought a lot while I was in there. I know I was a jerk back then. That bitch Yu Shaoqing blinded me. I have nothing left now. And my dad is gone. I really know I was wrong. His eyes were red-rimmed as he tried to play the victim to win my sympathy. Ciao ciao. We've known each other since we were kids. Can you give me one more chance? As long as you're willing. I'll do whatever it takes for you from now on. I'll make sure you never have to suffer even the slightest injustice again. Listening to his heartfelt confession, I just felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Liu Yuqing, did you lose your mind in there? I cut him off without mercy, my eyes brimming with sarcasm. What makes you think that a brilliant provincial top scorer would take in a former convict with a criminal record? Do you really think you can win me over by looking so pitiful right now? You're just at the end of your rope and looking for a free blood transfusion. My words were like a sharp knife, piercing right through his mask of hypocrisy. Liu Yuqing's face turned deathly pale in an instant. He bit his lip in embarrassment, trying to defend himself. I didn't. I really do regret it. Ciao ciao. Believe me. Stop with that sickening nonsense. I took a step back, putting some distance between us, as if he were carrying some kind of deadly virus. There's been no relationship between us for a long time. From the moment you tried to strangle me for Yu Shaoqing, you've been as good as dead to me. I deliberately brought up the fact that he had strangled me in a past life. Liu Yuqing clearly didn't understand what I was saying. He just assumed I was still upset about the college entrance exam. Ciao ciao. Don't be like this. I really know I was wrong. Get lost. I coldly uttered a single word, denying him any further chance to speak, then turned and walked away with my classmates. Liu Yuqing stood there dumbfounded, watching my receding figure. Finally, in despair, he covered his face with his hands, crouched down on the ground, and burst into tears. He finally realized that once certain mistakes are made, there's never a chance to start over. Later, I heard that Liu Yuqing had gone to work at a remote construction site carrying bricks. He was exhausted every day, but couldn't even get enough to eat. As for Yu Shaoqing, after her release from prison, she was unable to find a legitimate job due to her criminal record and was forced to live on the streets, making a living by scavenging through trash. Once, while trying to snatch an empty bottle, she got into a fight with an old man who scavenged for scrap and had her leg broken. leaving her permanently lame. When I heard the news, I was in the lab debugging the latest equipment. I just gave a faint smile and didn't say anything. Their lives are already a complete mess, but mine has only just begun. I turned my gaze back to the screen in front of me, where complex data flashed across the display, symbolizing endless possibilities and a bright future. The grudges from a past life finally came to a perfect conclusion at that moment. Chu Chiao Chiao, will one day stand at the pinnacle and look down upon this vast world. Senior Chu. The experimental data matches our expectations perfectly. My junior's excited voice interrupted my train of thought. I turned my head and looked out the window at the bright sunlight, a confident smile playing on my lips. Great. Let's move on to the next phase of testing. The future belongs to us.